we are going, inshallah, to just discuss some aspects of this great surah. This is one of the great surahs of the Quran, as we know. And the hadith we mentioned is related by Tirmidhi. Okay. And the names of this surah that it saved, its reciter, or the one who often recited from the punishment of the grave. And let me look into the, yes, the hadith is, the Prophet ﷺ said that a surah from the Quran, 30 ayahs, it intercedes for a person or for a man till Allah forgave him, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, تبارك الذي بيده الملك, and this hadith is related by Imam Tirmidhi, rahimahullah. The surah is Makkiyah, as we know. Surah is Makkiyah, and the ulama, all of the mufassirin, of the Quran, and those who deal with the knowledge of the Quran and the sciences of the Quran, with their consensus and unanimity, they said that it is Makkiyah. So this what was revealed before the hijrah of the Prophet. We mentioned that it has many names. Suratul Mulk, Surah Tabarak alladhi biyadihi al-mulk, as the Prophet mentioned it in the hadith, and this is the first name for it. Then the most popular name in the books of tafsir and the mushafs, and Al-Bukhari rahimahullah in his book of tafsir made it as a title. It is Suratul Mulk, Surat Al-Mulk. It was also called Al-Mani'a, the protector or the preventer, because of what Tabarani rahimahullah related from the narration of Ibn Mas'ud radhiallahu anhu, that he said that we used to call it at the time of the Prophet ﷺ as the Al-Mani'a. Al-Mani'a. Mani'a means the preventer. Okay. Some also, it was mentioned that its name is Tabarak al-Mulk. Tabarak al-Mulk. This was related by Imam Tirmidhi, that a man from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ made, a tent, okay, on a grave. And he said, I didn't know that it was a grave. Okay. Then he said, there was a man, okay, in that grave reciting Surah Tabarak till its end. And the Prophet ﷺ said, it is and he heard the recitation of this surah till its end, and he said it is Al-Mani'a, it is Al-Munjiya, tunjihi min adab al-qabr, it would save him from the torture of the grave. Al-Waqiya, and in the book of Sayuti, he said one of its names is Al-Waqiya. Al-Mani'a, well, we mentioned this. Al-Manna'a is also another name for it. And Al-Fakhr al-Razi, in his tafsir, mentioned that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he used to call it Al-Mujadila because it argues for its reader or for its reciter, when the two angels in the grave would come and ask him. The main themes and main objectives behind the surah is three objectives or main goals of the surah. And the one who understands Suratul Mulk, he should have these three objectives made, or goals made mention, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made mention of them in this surah, to recognize and realize it. And the first is to establish the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so magnificent in His creation, in His ability, in in putting the life to death and putting those who are dead to life. So it establishes and gives evidences that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so magnificent in His abilities, in all of His qualities, that He can create, He can, bring the dead to life and put the life to death, to death. Yeah. Also, it sets the proofs and evidences that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Lord, okay, of al-Alameen. It shows the proofs and evidences that there is no Lord who has the sovereignty and the ownership of this world except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbul Alameen. And this also by inference, it shows that the one who has this sovereignty and great ability of controlling the whole world is the one who needs to be feared and needs to be worshipped. Okay. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in this ayah the abode or the destination or the may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, the threatening and the bad end and the evil end of the disbelievers. Okay, and those who rejected to believe in the resurrection and the the creation after death and reckoning. We mentioned also these are the three things. Yeah. So first of all, it establishes and shows how magnificent and great is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ability on His creation, putting the life to death and bringing the dead to life again. And the second, it gives, grounded evidences that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sole Lord of this whole universe, the one who only owns it and controls it. And it shows the bad end or the destination of the liars or those who believed and disbelieved in resurrection. At the beginning of this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started it by Tabarak. And how many surahs we have in the Quran that starts with Tabarak? 2 surah, Al-Furqan and this surah, Al-Mulk. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. And the other one, تبارك الذي نزل على عبده الفرقان. تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان على عبده. Sorry for that. تبارك and baraka, one needs to always be mindful that baraka has 2 meanings. The first that it means the increase, increment, okay, and the you can say the always increment of something. And the second, it means that the goodness would last and would still be there. When you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless someone, barakallahu feek, means may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase you more in all goodness and make you firm, on such goodness. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is a praise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the greatest and of goodness and of grace on His servants. Okay. Also, beginning this surah by saying Tabarak, it is seeking the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tabarak alladhi biyadihi al-mulk wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. As if you are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeking such barakah from Him. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, when he cited upon this ayah, تبارك الذي بيده الملك, he said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs, that all the control of the whole universe and the creation is in his hand solely, only and only. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, يعز من يشاء, he elevates and raises a person to to a noble post, and he, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, will debase whomsoever and humiliate whomsoever he likes. He enriches and gives ghina, rich, or wealth to whomsoever he likes or he wills, and he puts to poverty whomsoever he wills, and he revives and brings to life whomsoever he likes, and he puts whomsoever he likes to death of those, and he gives and he prevents. So nobody can have all of these, controlled except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And supreme example to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever king he owns and he has, he can, for example, show a high boast of a person to the people, but he cannot instill the love to that person and the dignity in the hearts of the people. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. Okay? And nobody, as you know, could bring life to a dead, or put a living being to death except by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Supreme example to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like the story that had happened between Ibrahim alayhi salam and the Namrud, when he asked Namrud, this tyrant king, he asked Ibrahim, who's your Rabb? And he said, Rabbiya alladhi yuhyi wa yumit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who brings life from naught, from nothing. And he puts, anything living to death in a more general and comprehensive way, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can put all people to death right away, or bring all of them to life again. This cannot be by any person, okay? So this tyrant, he said, I do the same. Ana uhyi wa umit. He said, I bring life and, can cause death. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. This is from his arrogance. So he said how he would prove it. He brought someone who was innocent, and he said, kill him. And he killed him. And he brought someone who was to be executed, and he said, freed him, and he said, see, I can bring life and cause death. Astaghfirullah. But when the stubbornness of this person reached that stage, Ibrahim alayhi salam went to a further sign that cannot be, attained by anyone. When he said to him, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْتِي بِالشَّمْسِ مِنَ الْمَشْرِقِ فَأْتِ بِهَا مِنَ الْمَغْرِبِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really brings, the sun from the east. So if you think that you are able to do whatever you like, bring it from the west. فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. He was humiliated and defeated. And thus, this goes to anyone who would come against the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, a universal law for this deen to spread and to be prominent and to be the greatest deen over other deens. Whatever the kuffar would do, to stop the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they fight it, it becomes more strong, it becomes stronger. And if they leave it, it would, subhanAllah, spread. This deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the ayah, هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق. This is a great guidance, okay, in all walks of life, spiritually and physically, for our worldly affairs as our hereafter affairs, and for everything, for individual, family, society, world, internationally, economically, politically, all of it. It is a guidance, okay? Clear guidance, okay? It puts, the grounds and the basics and the fundamental concepts for anything. It is there. But the problem is those who apply and implement the teachings of the deen, they are the ones who mess with it, Allah musta'an, by deviating from it or leaving the teaching of Allah musta'an. And in the ليظهره على الدين هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق. It is the only true deen that's easy to digest, to accept, by our innate nature. We accept such deen, such teachings, easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it, for the welfare of the whole people. It's not that, a deen of restrictions, to stop a person from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made good and lawful for him. Yes, it restricts one from something harmful in both this life and the hereafter. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make it to prevail, and it would be so known and evident over all other religions. Okay? And وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. Even if the disbelievers hate that and try to oppose it, they won't be able. This is Allah's universal law. But where are we from that thing? Are we raising the banner of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trying to preach what we learn at least and try to be beneficial? We have to do our best to be beneficial to the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy on all of us to tread the path of righteousness. Allahumma ameen. Ibn Abbas, when he said, the words that when he commented on الذي بيده الملك, he said, يعز من يشاء ويذل من يشاء ويغني من يشاء ويفقر من يشاء ويحيي ويميت ويعطي ويمنع يهب لمن يشاء إناثا ويهب لمن يشاء الذكور أو يزوجهم ذكرانا وإناثا ويجعل من يشاء عقيما. Who can do all of these except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Almighty, who brings dignity and nobility, to a person, even if he is not, in a post. And subhanallah, you find some people, they are not positioned in government posts, yet they are dignified and they are so respected and revered by the people. Okay, and from amongst them is like Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah. So Al-Albani rahimahullah, he was, actually a watchmaker, or he used to repair clocks and watches. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, raised his esteem because of his embarking on studying the Prophet's hadiths and spreading that, to the extent that nobody now knows a hadith, except, through that Sheikh Albani authenticated or Sheikh Albani commented on it. It doesn't mean that Sheikh Albani rahimahullah was infallible, no. But subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised his team, though he was not having a position, like a political position, was neither a minister nor a president, nor even a big judge in a court, nor, a professor at university. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises the esteem of the people to whatever degrees he wants. Like, if one goes back to see Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah, Sheikh al-Batayba rahimahullah, Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah, he was having a post as a mufti, grand mufti of the kingdom, and he was a alim too. Till now, we are remembering those ulama. Who gave them this great esteem or high esteem? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. and he debases whomsoever he wills. Those kuffar who were before us, like Pharaoh, till now, every person curses him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this. Supreme example to Allah, to his prophets and messengers. And he gives the wealth or richness to whomsoever he wills, and he gives or he puts whomsoever he wills to poverty, and he brings, to life whomsoever he wills the way he wills it, and he puts or causes death to whomsoever he wills. He gives and he prevents. He endows, whomsoever he wills with females only, and he gives others, only males, or he gives both, males and females, and he puts whomsoever he wills, to be barren, or to be without children. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has the sovereignty. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. So to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the sovereignty, the mighty, and the ownership of all of the heavens and earth and what's within them or between them. He creates whatsoever he wills, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, on everything. He has the ability. It's easy to him. ما خلقكم ولا بعثكم إلا كنفس واحدة. Creating you and putting you to death and resurrecting you, all of human beings from their beginning to their end, is like creation of one single soul. One single soul, subhanAllah. So, that's why we resort to say glorified to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in whose hands, resides the malakut, the sovereignty and control and ownership of everything, and all of us, all of the creation will return back to him. So when one knows this, he would seek provision, he would seek, honor, he would seek, the honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the nobility, izzah, to have the honor is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why, because no one, has the control of that except Allah. The Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, he said, اللهم يسألك رحمتك فإنه لا يملكها إلا أنت. Oh Allah, I ask you your mercy, so there is no one who controls it but you. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, تبارك الذي بيده الملك, in this ayah, we have to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, states in it clearly that he has a hand, and we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a hand that befits his majesty. We cannot know or attain to know how it is. So we believe in that without rejecting that, or twisting the meaning of it, or changing it, or giving a simile to that. And this is part of our aqidah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الذي خلق الموت والحياة. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to signify that, both, death and life is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why he, الذي خلق الموت والحياة, he gives precedence to death. We mentioned that, because, when people hear death, they get shocked. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them, first of all, wants to tell them that before your beginning to be living, you were dead, and you will return to death. So you have to, you have to realize that and to know it. And why he made that creation? Why he created both both death and life? And also the ulama, they said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned death as to show them that he has, the control over everything. And all human beings, they believe that, they will, one day they will die, but nobody knows what's the nature of death, what it is, till Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extend our lives in His pleasure, till till it comes to Him. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said He made that لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. And lam here is for ta'lil. Ta'lil means to give a reason. Allah created both death and life so that He may, try you and test you. Who's amongst you is أحسن عملا, best in deeds. So it is a test and a trial for you. Who will be doing the best as pertaining to the actions and deeds. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would see Al-Muhsin and Al-Musi, the good doer from the bad doer. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from doing evil and being evil doers, and they will be segregated. And we mentioned and many times that Ihsan al-Amal, first of all, this ayah was mentioned in 3 places, as I do remember. In Surah Al-Kahf, and before that, in Surah Al-Kahf, and before that in Surah Hud, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned that لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. In Surah Hud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned again, the creation of both heavens and earth in 6 days. And He mentioned that His throne was on water, okay? And He made the wisdom behind that so that لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, so that He may test you, try you, who would be better in deeds. And He didn't say who would be, doing more. No, okay? And in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, we have, made and adorned and decorated this worldly life, made it zina, appealing, so attractive, لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ, so that we would test them, أَيُّهُمْ, who would be amongst them, أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. And in Surah Al-Mulk here, He mentioned the creation of death and life, and He made a mentioning of the wisdom behind that to test you, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. And ihsan here means to try to do the actions or to do the deeds, in the best and most perfect manner, without, deficiency, without decrement in it, and without any defect, without deficiency or defect. And this cannot be attained except by one recognizes and have a great belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an observer, and He observes him and He's over him. And this goes in line with what the Messenger ﷺ said in the greatest hadith of Jibreel, which was narrated by Muslim, when the Prophet ﷺ was asked by Jibreel, okay, and he said, أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه, so to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you do gaze at Him and see Him in front of you, is what the meaning, as if He's in front of you, you gaze to Him. So, however, if you cannot and you won't be able to see Him, for verily He observes you. And the one who worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if he sees Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the station of love. When one loves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to that extent that if he becomes so fond and so attached to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as if he sees Him, as if he gazes at Allah. However, the other degree is if he cannot see Allah, he would observe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an observant over him, so he should do his deed right, and he should avoid forbiddings. And he who, supreme example to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he who had been observed by people, he won't do something, uh, forbidden and known to the people that it is forbidden or illegal thing. He won't be able to do it. So, giving example to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if one, has this belief that as if when he worships Allah, and worship here is in its, comprehensive meaning. Not only the acts of worship, all of his life, should be conducted in accordance, to be a real servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Jibreel came to teach his ummah the deen at the end of the hadith. And the meaning of ihsan is clearly here. So he who would be mindful of Allah, he would attain that degree. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who attain it. And it should be realized that not only ihsan here, perfection of deeds, is not only with the ibadat, it's also with the transactions in every walk of life. So a person, he should be muhsin when he worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and muhsin when he deals with people, whatever their degree, even with his enemies. He has to come to people the way he loves them to come to him, or treat them and deal with them the way he loves them to deal with him. And this is by being a good, having a good manners and morals, and being, smile with a smile face, and not to do any harmful thing, or to be a reason or a cause that would bring them any harm. Rather, to be always good doer to them. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said, whoever requests from the people or an ibad, from servants, a compensation for whatever he does to them, whether it is a praise or supplication. And some people, for example, they spend in charity. It should be done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To be a muhsin, you should do it for that reason only. You should not say, give the poor 10 riyals and say, please make dua for me. If you want to attain ihsan, it's okay to ask him to make dua, but by doing that for the sake of Allah, if you ask a compensation for such ihsan, for such, you have not reached to be perfect. You haven't reached to get to the perfection of doing that deed. And the ulama, they said, always you should consider the heart's actions from sincerity, reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heavily, the awe and fear you get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the humbleness in the heart towards, you humiliate yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and feel the khushu' and khawf from him, and fear him. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned one of the aspects of the ayat he mentioned is the ayah الذي خلق سبع سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور. When he mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created 7 worldly heavens, layers over layers, you cannot find there in the creation of Ar-Rahman any deficiency or any defect. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked the person who would think so to return his sight and see again and look again and look again, many times, you won't find any defect whatsoever. And again, we always mention that the universal law Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established in His creation is so unique to the extent that we have, okay, we have no, yani, the people are astonished, scientists, and worldly wide physicists, mathematicians, doctors, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has perfected His creation and the laws that control everything in this life, okay, in a very, high precision, high accuracy. You know, for example, the how when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this, sight, the this big blessing, how he can see, and what would happen if just, the muscles of the eye, get lazy, or it gets dilated and the person starts not to see well. It was done in a proportion measure. And in the eye, the doctors, the those who are, eye doctors, they have specialties, you know, so it goes down to the tiny details of the eye, and it is one of the great wonders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of His creation. And this is just an example. So whatever a person does, he cannot attain to criticize what Allah has created within himself, within the creation in this world, within what's besides him, or the whole universe, the heavens, the planets, the sun, the galaxies, and the stars. So Allah wants to say the one who created this universe in such precision, in such great, accuracy, cannot be beaten. And, the one who does that, no doubt, he won't leave his creation, to their own, perceptions and conceptions, and to be prey and victims, for others to decide for them. No, he has revealed to them, the, the, the real, what we can say, guidelines to deal with this life as a whole. And as his universal law has a great extent of accuracy and precision, the same goes and applies to his legal law, to his sharia, to what he revealed to the prophets. If the people implement it, it will be, in their best, for their success in this world and the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy on all of us to tread the path of righteousness. Then he said, ثم ارجع البصر كرتين. يعني Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فارجع البصر ثم ارجع البصر. So he said, whether you look to the heavens, then you look again and again, okay? And كرتين here isn't intended to be only twice, okay? But whatever you do of this karra is to do again and again, to do something another time. He said ينقلب إليك البصر, and ينقلب means يرجع. The same word يرجع and ينقلب is very close, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, since he used يرجع twice, he used the انقلاب instead. ينقلب إليك البصر, the sight will return to you, خائب. خائب means lost, it will be the loser, whatever you do, you cannot find any defect. You won't find, if those people try to criticize what Allah created, they won't attain it, okay? Rather, they would actually, reach only but hardships and burdening themselves, and they will end up in fatigue. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, خاسئا وهو حسير. Hasir means it will reach, due to the fact that this person has tried so many times, he got so, what we can say, he got a fatigue out of that. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentioned the adornment that he made to the heavens, that these are the stars. ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين. And the ulama like Imam Qatada, rahmahullah, one of the Mufassirin, he said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created stars for three methods. As decoration for the heavens, zina للسماء, or adornment, ورجوما للشياطين, and it is meteors and to stone the devils who try to eavesdrop, and it is signs, guiding signs for those who travel both in land or in the sea. Other than that, it should not be sought. Anyone who tries to think that other than these would be sought, other than what Qatada said, he is actually seeking or blindly guessing at the unseen, and he would reach just going to heresy, may Allah save us, or to magic. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentioned the hellfire and how this hellfire, this blazing fire, would feel or would bring sounds of rage against the kafirs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. تكاد تميز من الغيظ. Okay, when the kuffar are being distant and being casted in hell, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. And the ulama also cited upon the ayah where the angels guarding the fire or hell would ask the people, أَلَمْ يَأْتِكُمْ نَذِيرٌ, that this ayah establishes the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not punish before the message, before before the messengers come, or the warners would come and clarify to the people their deed. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this ayah. Allah will not punish unless he sends a messenger. And again, those people will admit and will regret, and it would be their dismay and their, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, excuse me. For their dismay, they would realize that they had denied and rejected the truth, but it would be so late, and you can feel how horrible they're feeling at that stage. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from that. And they would say, بَلَا قَدْ جَاءَنَا نَذِيرٌ فَكَذَّبْنَا. Not only they would say we will be late, no, rather they made it more than that. They said to the messengers, إِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا فِي ضَلَالٍ كَبِيرٍ وَقُلْنَا مَا نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. They denied that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed anything thereof. And they said to the messengers that they were in a great error. Then they came back to their minds and they said, and they had confessed the truth. وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ. If it was that we just paid attentive listening. A person sometimes could listen to something, but not paying attention to what it is all about. Could hear something. We can say even in Arabic, نستمع is different than نسمع. And we mention always that in Arabic language, if a word, we increase its letters, it means it has an extensive or more intensive meaning. So those people, they used not to pay attentive ear. They used to hear, but they used not to pay much, to what they used to hear. They used not to realize and recognize and reason out what they used to hear. That's why they said, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ. If we would have just paid attention and he listened, because the beginning of anything is listening to it. So try, brothers, to pay attentive ear to goodness and not to listen to anything that's of evil nature or deviation or astraness, because this will affect a person. Because the beginning is to listen. Then a person might get fond and listen more and pay more attention to that, and he might end up, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, getting, a doubt that would destroy his deen and dunya. Sometimes it destroys both his deen and dunya, because this doubt might, bring him to miserable life in this, due to following his lusts and desires. So they said, لو كنا نسمع. So it was, the ulama, they said, أول العلم السماع. The beginning, to begin seeking knowledge is to, pay attentive ears to what you hear. So hearing something is the beginning. You cannot attain to realize and recognize and understand everything the first time you listen to it. But then, bit by bit, you would conceive and perceive and have and reason out things, and realize it. وقالوا لو كنا نسمع ونعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. So they mentioned that they used not to hear to the truth, because they used to, when they hear the Quran, they said, ألغوا فيه. They used to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, clap or whistle and distract people from listening to the Quran. So they used not to pay heed to the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah knows best. It is like also again, not paying heed to the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the horizons, because we have two kinds of ayat: the signs in the horizons of Allah's creation and the ayat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. It seems we will have another, inshallah, week on this topic, because nice to look into these points of this surah, this great surah. We will stop here, inshallah, and remind me next week, inshallah, to start from ayat number 12. And if you have questions, you can raise your hands or come to the mic. But before that, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gathered between as-sam' and al-aql. So nobody, would reach to realize something without listening to it. And listening sometimes, either it will spoil your mentality, your reasoning, or it would add to it. And nothing is better than, trying to keep your hearing, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you of this hearing faculty, away from listening to doubts, to kufr, to anything that's forbidden, because it will affect, your convictions. So be careful, brother. Huh? That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned this ayah, that those kuffar, they said, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ. They used not to pay heed, sama' or reason out and look at the Quran and use their mental power in the right sense. Thus, if one, for example, listen to something away from the deen, he might, get his aql, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, attracted to something which is not beneficial to him. Okay. And ulama, they said, if a person cannot hear at all, or he was created like that he won't attain to realize things and recognize it well. Okay. So we'll stop here, inshallah, and the next week we'll start from ayah number 12. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your attentive listening, and may He subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us our deeds and make it, make us among those who are best carrying out their acts of worships and transactions and dealing with others. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. Up to here we will stop, inshallah. We still have 3 or 4 minutes before we go.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Yes,
Can
yes,
I
go
ask
ahead.
a question?
Sure, sure.
In the next class, if it is possible, can you detail a little bit of the rulings on, Asma Sifat, yani the names and the attributes of Allah and the rulings there? For example, you said that we cannot twist the meaning and we cannot change the meaning. And I heard that there are 7 such conditions. If it is possible, can you just ponder over one of the names of Allah and then we can understand the rulings behind that?
Inshallah, we'll do this, inshallah, remind me. So I thought, this is something Abu Mus'ab, Allah reward him, he is doing, because he's teaching Aqidah, Wasṭiyya. So I think,
Okay.
inshallah, if you are maybe you are not joining the class, but inshallah we can cite about it next.
No, I am joining his class as well, but I was not regular in the beginning. Inshallah, I will be joining today. Last week also I was there.
MashaAllah. But then inshallah I'll try to cite
briefly, Yani, just as a matter of one name or something like this, one attribute.
Inshallah, we'll try to give some guidelines. Okay,
Yeah.
that would be inshallah brief and to the point, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. It was very nice.
May Allah reward you and bless you all and make it of benefit to me and to all of you and to the whole world, Ya Rabbi. Jazakallah. Any more questions, brothers? طيب جزاكم الله خير. نسأل الله عز وجل أن يوفقكم لما يحب ويرضى. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
جزاك الله خير.
السلام ورحمة الله
وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله
وبركاته.